Tiran Island, Red Sea, just 14 kilometers from the Egyptian coast. A strategic piece of rock controlling access to the Gulf of Aqaba and Israel's southern port of Eilat. Its population, 800 Israeli civilians. Its defense, 150 Israeli soldiers. And at 1:47 p.m., on one clear afternoon, 30 Russian-made landing craft appeared on the horizon carrying Iranian Revolutionary Guards. This was no mere raid, no probe. This was a full-scale amphibious invasion, backed by Russian equipment and planned with Russian advisors. What unfolded in the next 34 minutes became the most violent marine combat operation in the Middle East since Fallujah. Because what Iran didn't know was that 500 US Marines were conducting joint exercises just 18 kilometers away. And America does not let allies get invaded while US forces stand by. This is the story of how Iran, equipped with Russia's best amphibious warfare technology, attempted to seize Israeli territory. How they landed 1,000 troops with Russian-made tanks and artillery. How Russian tactical advisors assured Tehran this plan would succeed, and how US Marines turned their invasion into a massacre that Moscow and Tehran are still trying to explain. If you want to understand why attacking America's allies is national suicide, you need to hear this story. Welcome to Strategic Horizon, where we uncover the pivotal moments that shape global power dynamics. Let's get into it. For 6 months, Russia had been quietly preparing Iran for this operation. New amphibious landing craft, Russian-made BTR, 8 2A armored personnel carriers, upgraded artillery systems, and most importantly, Russian tactical advisors who helped plan what they call Operation Red Tide, the invasion that would seize Tiran Island and cut off Israel's access to the Red Sea. The equipment came with guarantees. Moscow's military planners ran simulations showing how Iranian forces could overwhelm the lightly defended island before American or Israeli reinforcements could respond. The geography favored the attacker. Tiran was isolated, far from major Israeli bases, yet close enough to Iranian-backed positions in Yemen that air support could reach them. On paper, the plan was flawless. Iranian Revolutionary Guard General Qasemiri believed every Russian guarantee. At a final planning session the day before the operation, he told his commanders, "The Russians have given us the tools. The Americans won't arrive in time. The Israelis cannot stop 1,000 troops. Tomorrow we plant the Iranian flag on Tehran and show the world that Israel's borders are not secure." Russian advisors nodded confidently. They had trained the Iranian crews, supplied the equipment, and planned the assault timeline down to the minute. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. At 12:30 p.m., 30 Iranian landing craft departed from positions on the Yemen coast. Each Russian-made craft carried 35 Revolutionary Guards, totaling over 1,000 troops, plus 6 Russian-supplied BTR, 8 2A armored vehicles, artillery pieces, and anti-aircraft missiles. This was not a raid, this was an invasion force. At 1:15 p.m., Israeli radar detected them. Multiple contacts, high speed, heading directly toward Tiran Island. Israeli military command went to full alert. Fighter jets scrambled from Ramon Air Base, and ships diverted from patrol routes, but they were 200 kilometers away, a 30-minute response time at minimum. At 1:35 p.m., the Israeli garrison on Tiran went to combat stations, 150 soldiers with light weapons and no heavy armor against 1,000 Iranian troops with Russian tanks and artillery. Consider those odds for a second. A 7-1 disadvantage on an isolated island with reinforcements 30 minutes away. These Israeli soldiers knew what was coming, and they knew the math wasn't in their favor. At 1:42 p.m., Israeli Southern Command radioed the USS Wasp, an amphibious assault ship conducting joint exercises 18 kilometers west of Tehran. American forces, this is IDF Southern Command. Iranian amphibious assault in progress. Tiran Island. Estimated 1,000 enemy troops. Request immediate assistance, any available assets. The response came in 15 seconds. The voice was calm, but you could hear the steel underneath. IDF command, this is Wasp actual. 500 Marines standing by. 4 F-35S airborne. Ospreys launching now. Help is coming. Tell your men to hold that island. At 1:47 p.m., Iranian landing craft hit the beaches. Ramps dropped and Revolutionary Guards poured out. Russian-made BTR-82 has rolled ashore. There are 30mm cannons already firing. The Israeli garrison opened fire with rifles, machine guns, and anti-tank weapons, but with 1,000 against 150 supported by armored vehicles, the outcome seemed inevitable. Within 8 minutes, Iranian forces had seized the southern beach, pushing inland and overwhelming defenders. Russian tactics were working exactly as planned. At 1:55 p.m., the Israeli commander radioed a desperate message. His voice was steady, but you could hear the strain. "We cannot hold." Repeat, "we cannot hold." Enemy forces advancing with armor request immediate evacuation or reinforcement. The response from USS Wasp was immediate. "Reinforcement inbound. 5 minutes. Hold your positions. Marines are coming. 5 minutes and eternity in combat." But 500 US Marines were about to turn Iran's invasion into a nightmare at 1:58 p.m. 14 millivolts, two Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft lifted off from USS Wasp, each carrying 24 Marines with full combat loads, weapons, and ammunition. This was the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit. 500 warriors trained for exactly this scenario, an amphibious assault against hostile forces threatening an American ally. At 2:01 p.m., 6 AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters, followed gunships armed with Hellfire missiles, Hydra rockets, and 20mm cannons. At 2:03 p.m., 4 F-35B Lightning stealth fighters positioned overhead, providing air superiority and strike capability, ready to engage. This was the largest American combat aviation package deployed in the Red Sea in decades, flying directly toward an active battlefield. At 2:04 p.m., the first F-35 seconds engaged, not the Iranian troops or the landing craft, but the Russian-supplied anti-aircraft positions that Iranian forces had set up on the beach. Precision strikes, GPS-guided bombs, Iran's Russian air defenses. The systems Moscow guaranteed would protect the landing force were destroyed before they could fire a single shot. At 2:06 p.m., the Vipers arrived over Tehran. Pilots instantly assessed the tactical situation. Iranian troops advancing inland, Israelis falling back, civilians fleeing, Russian BTR-82 as leading the assault. All Vipers, weapons free. Engage hostile armor. Priority landing zones. 6 Hellfire missiles launched simultaneously, targeting Russian-made BTR-82 as on the beach. 6 armored vehicles destroyed in 12 seconds. Explosions, fire, armor penetration, the Russian BTR-82, as that were supposed to be the backbone of the assault, became burning wrecks. Iranian troops scattered, looking for cover, finding none. Then came the Hydra rockets, 70mm rockets per helicopter salvo, anti-personnel devastating. Iranian Revolutionary Guards were caught in the open with no protection, no escape. The beach that had been an invasion point 90 seconds ago became a killing zone. At 2:08 p.m., 14 Ospreys descended onto Tiran, not near the beach, but behind the Iranian lines, flanking their positions. Rams dropped, and Marines poured out. Not defensively, but attacking 24 Marines per Osprey, 14 Ospreys, 336 Marines hitting the ground in 90 seconds. Can you imagine what the Iranians felt in that moment? They had been told American forces wouldn't arrive in time, Russian advisors had guaranteed it, but here were hundreds of US Marines appearing behind them, cutting off their retreat, bringing overwhelming firepower. Marine Corps doctrine, aggression, violence of action, overwhelming force at the point of contact. At 2:10 p.m., Iranian forces realized they were being attacked from behind. M4 carbines, M27 automatic rifles, M240 machine guns, precise, disciplined, deadly. Iranian troops tried to form defensive positions, and return fire with their Russian AK-103 rifles. Too late, too slow, too disorganized. Marines don't give enemies time to think. They attack constantly, relentlessly, professionally. At 2:13 p.m., the Israeli garrison, seeing Marines arrive, counterattacked from the front. Iranian forces were now caught in a vice. Marines behind, Israelis ahead, helicopters overhead, raining death. The invasion was collapsing. At 2:16 p.m., the Iranian commander's voice, shaking now, all confidence gone, radioed, "Tiran under heavy attack! American Marines! Helicopters! We need air support immediately!" The Russian equipment is not working. They're destroying us. But Iranian air support couldn't respond. F-35S controlled the airspace. Any Iranian aircraft entering would be detected and destroyed before reaching the island. At 2:19 p.m., Iranian forces attempted to retreat to the beach, back to their Russian landing craft, hoping to escape to Yemen. But the beach was a disaster zone. Half the Russian landing craft were destroyed by Hellfire missiles. The rest were under continuous attack from Vipers circling overhead like predators. Troops trying to board were cut down by 20mm cannon fire. Bodies floated in the water, landing craft burned. Complete chaos. At 2:21 p.m., the Iranian commander made the hardest decision of his life over an open radio frequency so everyone could hear. His voice was broken. "All units, ceasefire. We surrender. Repeat, we surrender to American and Israeli forces." You could hear the shame in his voice, the realization that everything Russia promised, the equipment, the tactics, the timeline, had been a lie. At 2:21 p.m. 34 minutes after the invasion began, the Battle of Tiran Island ended. Of 1,000 Iranian Revolutionary Guards, 620 were dead or wounded, 380 surrendered, and 0 were successfully evacuated. US Marines sustained 6 wounded, 0 dead. Israeli forces suffered 19 killed and 38 wounded. The island was held. The invasion was annihilated. Within hours, the world knew. Iran attempted to invade Israeli territory with Russian equipment and Russian tactical planning. US Marines crushed the attack in 34 minutes. 380 Iranian soldiers were captured, 620 were casualties, 6 Russian-made BTR-82, as were destroyed, 15 Russian landing craft sunk. Iranian state media went completely silent, no reporting, no statements, no propaganda. Because how do you spin catastrophic defeat? How do you explain losing 1,000 troops in 34 minutes? How do you admit Russian equipment failed completely? You pretend it didn't happen. But satellite imagery doesn't lie. International media showed everything. Iranian landing craft destroyed, Russian armored vehicles burning, troops surrendering, Marines victorious. Russia's reaction was even more telling. Complete silence. Not one word from Moscow about their advanced amphibious systems or their tactical planning, because there was nothing to say. The BTR-82, as were destroyed in seconds, their landing craft were sunk. Their anti-aircraft systems never fired. Their tactical timeline was shattered. Everything Russia sold Iran, everything they promised would work, had been defeated in half an hour. Global reaction was immediate. The Israeli Prime Minister stated, "Iran attempted to seize our territory. They failed. American forces responded within minutes. The alliance between Israel and the United States has never been stronger. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain all increased defense cooperation with the United States within days. All quietly cancelled pending Russian arms deals. The 380 captured Iranian Revolutionary Guards were held as prisoners. Interrogations revealed shocking information. They had been told Tehran was lightly defended, that American forces wouldn't respond, that Russian equipment would protect them from air attack, and that the island would be seized in 2 hours. Instead, they walked into the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, attack helicopters, F-35 air support, and a killing zone. Complete disaster. Intelligence sources reported crisis meetings in Tehran. The Supreme Leader was furious. Revolutionary Guard commanders blamed Russian advisors, and Russian advisors blamed Iranian execution. The invasion was supposed to demonstrate Iranian capability, prove they could seize territory, show that Russian equipment worked, and challenge Israeli security. Instead, 620 dead, 380 prisoners, 0 territory gained, Russian equipment was exposed as inadequate, complete humiliation. Think about the strategic implications for a moment. For years, Russia has been arming Iran with a promise. Our equipment will level the playing field against American and Israeli forces. Buy from us, and you can challenge their military superiority. Tiran Island exposed that promise as a lie. Iran launched a major amphibious invasion using Russian equipment, following Russian tactical plans with Russian advisors involved in the planning. Result? 1,000 troops annihilated in 34 minutes. Every piece of Russian equipment was either destroyed or captured. 0 objectives achieved. This is the lesson every nation that buys Russian weapons learned. Russian technology looks impressive in specifications, but when it faces American forces defending American allies, it fails catastrophically. Why does Tiran Island matter beyond one failed invasion? Because it revealed Iran's fatal limitation. They cannot project power beyond their borders when American forces respond. 1,000 troops, Russian tanks, Russian landing craft, Russian air defense should have been overwhelming against 150 Israeli defenders, against 500 Marines with air support. Suicide. This is the reality of modern warfare. Iran can threaten, can fire missiles, can sponsor proxies, but seizing and holding territory against an American military response? Impossible. And here's the message that echoed around the world. Any attack on American allies triggers an American response. Israel doesn't fight alone. The Saudis don't defend alone. The UAE doesn't stand alone. Tiran Island proved this. Iran attacked at 1:47 p.m. By 2:08 p.m., 336 Marines were on the ground, fighting, winning. That's the power of forward deployed forces. Marines on ships, ready, close, able to respond in minutes. China watched this carefully. Russia watched this carefully. Every adversary of the United States watched and understood. Russian equipment fails. Russian tactics fail. Russian guarantees are worthless. American alliances hold. American Marines fight. American Marines win 1:47 p.m. Tiran Island. Iran invades with 1,000 Revolutionary Guards, Russian-made armored vehicles, Russian landing craft, Russian tactical planning. 2:21 p.m. 34 minutes later. 620 Iranian casualties, 380 prisoners, 6 Russian BTR-82, as destroyed, 15 Russian landing craft sunk, 0 objectives achieved, Marines victorious, Israeli territory secured. The Iranian commander's voice over the radio, broken and defeated. The Russian equipment, it's not working. They're destroying us. That sentence tells you everything you need to know about Russian military technology in real combat. Today, Tiran Island is a fortress. US Marines rotate through constantly. Israeli forces are reinforced. The island will never be taken. The 380 Iranian prisoners were eventually returned through third country mediation. Their fate in Iran remains unknown. Iran hasn't threatened Israeli territory since, hasn't launched amphibious exercises, hasn't made invasion threats, because they learn what happens when you invade. While Marines are nearby, they come, they fight, they win. Russia learned that selling weapons with false guarantees destroys credibility. Their arms exports to the Middle East dropped 40% in the following year. Every nation learned that American alliances aren't symbolic. They are operational. Attack an American ally, fight American forces. What do you think? Could any military equipped with Russian weapons successfully invade territory defended by US Marines? Or is the gap in capability too wide to overcome? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This story shows why American alliances matter and why Russian weapons keep failing. Next time, we'll reveal what happened when Iran tried to use Russian air defense systems against American stealth fighters, and the results were even more devastating. The invasion that lasted 34 minutes, the Marines who ended it in one battle, the message to Tehran and Moscow, try it again. We dare you. Semper Fidelis. Always faithful, always ready. Never defeated. See you next time.